I think we can start. It's 6 o'clock. We'll start with call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call I will take. Catherine Solon. Here. Angie Schreiber. Here. Myself. And Jill Maddock is attending. Do we happen to have public comment?
No.
I don't think so.
Hasn't been open.
Okay, so first area of new business is the performance review process.
I wasn't sure why this was on. We didn't actually have a chance to talk about it, Bobby, but I did upload what DPI requires, and then for my own review, I took a look at policy, but I'm not sure if the board has specific questions or...
So I guess when we talked about that before, what I was looking for is the process in which our performance reviews are measured. Obviously, you have to abide to the DPI guideline, but do we have something in place for performance review for all employees?
Yes, so the one that I uploaded from DPI is for certified staff.
Okay.
And it's required, we do follow exactly what they outline in here, called educator effectiveness.
Okay, yep.
It's the one that's online. I've shown the board before. It's all electronic, and it's a 3-year cycle. But basically, the evaluator and the administrator, or the evaluator and the certified staff member, either way. They touch base every year, and then every 3rd year, it's a comprehensive summary year, we call it. So that's for certified staff. Support staff, we have moved to that same format in educator effectiveness. They actually have a component for support staff now. So we took a look at it this year just to get our feet wet. We used to use just like a paper copy, and again, it was every 3 years. However, the administrative guideline says you need to touch base or have a review every year. So it's good we're morphing into educator effectiveness, because that it would be the same cycle then that certified staff are.
Okay, so that was my plan basically, or to learn the timeline for certified staff versus support staff, and then if we're actively doing those reviews. And I just wanted to make sure that the language that's in our policy, along with our administrative guideline,
Right.
that we're following our own policy.
Right. We could have asked, if we hadn't moved to educator effectiveness, I may have asked the board to consider every 3 years for support staff. But this is a better system, so it will be every year, and then we'll be compliant.
Well, and I think the compensation has to go along with some sort of performance measure. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know for sure how the logistics of this all work, but just being blanket wage increase for everybody, then what is the incentive for anybody's performance? You know what I mean? I do
but
feel
that
those have to
is
tie.
Where we're at, though. Unless you are on a plan of improvement, whether you're support staff or certified staff, you do get that increase. Yeah, we used to have it in certified staff, you may recall. Actually, it was a points-based system.
Right.
We have yet, really, any district, we have trouble in public education finding a merit-based pay system that works, because there's so much subjectivity even like tying it to test scores, districts that have tried that because your raw materials, so to speak, kids come in so differently. So then you might make this many gains and that student is still not proficient, but then you're penalized where a colleague, you know, who has someone coming in already proficient then gets that increase. So anyway, that's where we're at with both support staff. Like Jake will do all of his in his department.
Right.
Yeah, we have it all covered.
So are they, those that are doing the evaluations, are they, they've gone through the training from Neola for?
Not
This-
Neola, but an
Or not,
educator.
yeah, DPI, sorry.
Effectiveness, you
Yeah.
have to be, it's called calibrated.
Mhm.
And yes, you have to be a licensed administrator and you have to be calibrated in order to evaluate.
So when are evaluations done?
All throughout the year, we usually,
Is it anniversary date or
we want them closed out, we call it, by the end of June.
your year?
But
Right.
like with teaching staff, they leave before then. So there are some administrators who are, I have my summatives scheduled yet because they work in the summer. But support staff and certified staff will be done already. Amy's the point person for educator effectiveness, so she's on the back end doing all of the updating on the program, entering the names, who the supervisor is, where they are in that 3-year cycle. It's either called year 1, 2, or 3, which is summative. So,
Okay.
So do all staff have a student or school learning objective that they're reviewing annually?
all certified staff do.
Okay.
Now, Katie and I,
Separate from like building?
usually it's related, Jill, but yeah, teachers have an individual student learning objective, and then buildings will have one too. So typically they're aligned, which just gives us more momentum if we're all pulling in the same direction.
Did you have a-
Yeah, do you, so I know you have those, you know, the 6 requirements or whatever, but do you have like a evaluation rubric that,
It's
So,
all
like-
in educator effectiveness. So
Okay.
it's really, maybe I can show you one, really comprehensive. So there are multiple indicators for the standards.
because like I was going through the proposed employee handbook, and it didn't give any information. Of course, I can't find that exact spot right now, but.
Well, I printed the handbook. The handbook is generic by nature, because then we want that specific information to come in depth from the evaluator. So the handbook actually says formal evaluations will be conducted, it's on my page 21, with state law, which we are, and is established by the district.
Okay.
And then it goes on to talk about summary performance, and that it should include scheduled and unannounced classroom visits, which we do. Conferences where teacher strengths, weaknesses, and areas of needed improvement are discussed, which we do. And then teachers in the district shall receive classroom walkthroughs in the non-summary year. And that's important because we don't want to ignore a teacher for 2 years and then just say, oh, you're on summary, and then zero in. It really should be a culmination of working together 3 years.
Yeah, because if things get off track, 3 years could,
Yeah, it seems like a long time, but.
yeah, it does.
Yep, and I think that's by design.
What do we pay for the educator effectiveness program?
I'd have to get back to you, I'm not sure.
Okay. Katie Ann, do you know by chance?
I've not seen that bill come through yet.
Okay, because there is a grant, if you're using it.
We
that-
get one each year.
Okay.
Yeah.
To help pay for it, okay.
Yep, we do. That I know for sure, but I don't know how much we get back either.
Okay.
Do you know what
Um,
the grant is
I think it is educator effectiveness actually
I
is in
want
the,
to say then it's like 3,600 or something, but yeah, because I remember seeing a grant.
Okay, that's what the grant is or the bill is?
The both.
Okay,
So the
well-
grant covers
The entire thing.
the entire.
Gotcha, okay.
okay, so here, just on February 17th, the amount that we received was $13,440.
Okay.
Sorry, that is correct, 13,000.
That's
Oh.
what we had to pay to CISA. Now, let me see how much we got back. And this is CISA 6, not 9, because they are the warehouse for educator effectiveness.
So when the grant reimburses us directly then?
Yes.
Or does it go through CISA?
I think it comes directly.
So we pay them 13,000 and then we get something back on this
And
grant.
this grant, this notice of the grant award was that same amount, 13,442.
Okay.
And Lori Leiterman's on it, like,
Yeah,
she watches for that and makes sure that she knows when it's coming and keeps us apprised of it.
Okay.
okay. Any other questions on performance review?
So does this need to go to the board then, or no? Is this kind of just informational?
Yeah, I think it was just
For,
information.
yeah, for my sake, it was just, I wanted to understand the
Okay.
process and to ensure that everybody is getting evaluated as they are supposed to.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
I guess thank you for the info.
Sure.
I'll move on to item B. And this was discussion about an additional position for maintenance department. Jake, what were you able to find out? Or come up with? Yeah, I don't, do you guys?
Yeah, you should
can
come
hear?
The microphone doesn't pick up hardly at all anyways.
Oh, on the meeting that's broadcasted, yeah, you can't hear anything.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's good to come forward, I guess.
so, I guess, based off our conversation, the headache that I have with, I guess let me restart that. Bobby had asked me a question on how I feel that my department is staffed. And when we have a full staff, I think we're appropriately staffed. I really do. What happens too frequently that causes me the headache is I can't find sub coverage. And I can't find, so just sub coverage alone, when I have somebody out for any reason, I don't have a pool of reliable subs anymore. Nobody wants to do sub work. It's very difficult to find. It's not just in Anago. Every one of my B&Gs has the same problem throughout my Wisconsin. It's like the old Wisconsin Valley Conference that we meet together.
Okay.
It's just very tough to find subs.
Right.
And what ends up happening is when you look at the number of hours that my staff takes off to the amount of hours that we actually have a sub to cover, or sometimes we have to end up paying overtime. I'm burning my staff out by asking them to cover extra areas, change their daily routines, because even if it's, okay, just hit garbages and go, the next day they know that they have extra work added because they skipped stuff the night before. And they're really good to work with as far as that, they don't mind. But when it becomes the norm, they get pretty sick of it. And I start
Not
burning
an occasional
people out.
favor. It's, you
Yeah.
get to do this all the time now.
Like I said, it's not like it's just a change in their routine. Then when they get back to their normal shift in their normal area, it's built up, so it's more work for them. Then on top of it, if I have, say, someone out for multiple days, I can't just ask them to cover the high spots for a night. And then I start paying people overtime to cover it. During the day shift, if I can't cover a day absence, then I'm pulling Clint Nicholson, which is supposed to be district maintenance and has a lot more horsepower than just, doing a custodian's work for the day. Not to, say that their job isn't important, but he's supposed to be doing maintenance things. He's supposed to be fixing things, making use of his talents to the best ability. Same thing with me. I've had to cover a lot this year because I just can't find subs. So you have just the sub portion of it that causes headache. Then the other portion that kind of leads into that is replacing staff with good quality candidates. When I put postings out, I've had a number of retirements in the last couple of years. I get very few candidates. The ones that do, if they're skilled and talented and I want them, typically it's, a second shift thing that'll hang them up, or wage. So I'm left with candidates that, are good people and they're good workers, but they're not the top candidate that I could have.
Right.
I've had candidates in the past that have applied. I haven't had an opening. When I do go to get an opening, or when I finally do have an opening and I call them back, they've found something else. So that really is frustrating when you're trying to build a strong staff and you have good people walk in the door and you can't hire them, even though in a month you're gonna need them. You turn them away and then you end up with a less talented candidate.
What is the wage? Or like, what does it start at? A
For
range?
housekeeping, as of July 1, it will be, base salary is $16.02. And custodian is $19.22, I believe.
So what is your resolution?
I would
Or
like to.
proposed resolution, I should say.
I would like to bring on a position very similar to the, Katie, help me, what do you call it?
So what we've seen success with recently in the past is doing the full-time subs in the elementaries. We just added an additional full-time sub in the elementary. We have one in the middle school and we have 2 part-times at the high school. But they're there, they're guaranteed to be there, and you put them where you need them. And with that, I would recommend that we do like a pilot year this year and see once if it creates the impact that Jake is hoping, seeing maybe a reduction in overtime, seeing a reduction in need for other subs that maybe we are not able to get, or more productivity out of his maintenance guys that are supposed to be doing maintenance and these full-time subs doing the work in the buildings. And so I figured that was kind of, we've seen success with it for teaching substitutes. Maybe it's something we pilot here. And the thing is if you're offering something, and we've seen this with the teaching ones as well, when something becomes available, they are kind of the first one to slide into that position.
It's true,
And
they're
then-
already there.
Yeah, and they
Well,
have the
and you
history.
know that they're good.
Or not, right.
It's uncanny to listen to you talk about the shortage of subs and how then you've had to fill in, and it parallels what's happening in the classroom, right? Principals covering for teachers, and the reason we went and asked the board for full-time subs. So it makes sense because the situation is so similar.
Does the full-time sub receive any benefits?
Yes.
They do.
That's the difference, because
and that
they're
is the-
full-time employees, yeah.
They do receive
So
benefits.
if we're calling them a sub, then what is the stipulation for them? That maybe they're not gonna be permanent forever?
Correct.
It's
They're-
1 year at a time,
It's a
basically.
1 year at a
Okay.
time.
Which I
kind of
guess
gig.
every
not a-
job could be
Right, that's
considered,
not a
but-
bad situation.
I mean, especially with my staff, we're all at-will employees. We don't have,
Oh,
my staff
yes,
doesn't
I
have
know.
contracts, so,
So would this position have a contract then? Because we were just saying it would be for 1 year.
Nope, they would be a sub, so it would be that you are subbing, and for this year, this is your wage. We do turn out
Letters of assurance.
Yes, I was gonna say, we do turn out something to those employees on a yearly basis. Even though it's not an actual contract, it's a letter of assurance.
So it says you have the reasonable expectation to expect employment with us again next year. It's not doesn't have to be a one-for-one, the same exact position, but something similar or above, never a demotion.
So would this be just one full-time then? Is that what you're looking at?
That would be,
Initially.
that would be my request, yeah.
I think this is a really creative solution. I
Right.
like that we're tying into what we're doing with the classroom stuff to try and meet a need elsewhere, so that's exciting. Have you tossed the thought around in your department or to potential applicants? Like, do you have any idea if that would increase interest for applicants for a position like this?
The biggest hangup is full benefits.
Yep.
I can't get a good candidate to come on as how we have our subs now, is just hourly as needed with no benefit package. That's the biggest thing. They have, they have families, they have a job that provides benefits right now, and for them to come and sit and wait for 6 months or a year until something, try to be a sub and work 2 jobs during that, they
Right,
can't do it.
Find that ideal retiree that just wants to
Correct.
come in here and there
And
and
that's
do
what
it.
all my subs
But
are, is
that's tough,
retirees.
too.
I shouldn't say all my subs. Right now I have 2 subs. I've had 2 subs all year.
Well, if this would alleviate any,
And I've done.
like you said, it'd be interesting, Katie,
Okay,
to-
that's fine. Yeah.
to look at what happens by next year, how much overtime maybe we would,
Well,
And this doesn't add an FTE per se.
Okay.
Onto like our actual like full-time, and that's the thing that we have the autonomy with it then to be able to, slide them into a full-time position that's, on the scale. With it being sub, we have the autonomy year to year to say, nope, this isn't working, or it is working. And if it is working, we keep them until we can slide them into a full-time somewhere. And then they already have the expertise of our buildings, so.
right?
And then I can post and wait for a good candidate. I don't have to hold this position year round. If I don't have the candidate I want, I don't hire, and I wait longer until I get a good candidate, and then I can grab them when they're available. I've done a little bit of trying to wrap my head around how to quantify not having this position versus what it would be having this position between overtime. It's tough because a lot of my staff, just for example, allocated time off they have 3,600 hours. As of today, they've only used 2,900, so they're responsible. They don't take extra time off. A lot of those hours they try to take off when I don't need a sub. So it's really hard to quantify it until I think we put it into action. We'll be able to pull numbers a little more.
Right.
But then there's always things like this person will just cover that position and won't take overtime that night. So how do I track that savings? It's morale that I'm saving, not dollars.
That
Well,
was gonna-
retention rates is what you're
that-
doing. You're
yeah.
trying to extend your
Right.
retention rates in the positions by not burning out your current staff.
I just want to be clear though that
Right.
this time next year, I'm not going to be able to show you every penny of
No, no,
impact.
I know.
I mean, we'll try and track and quantify as best we can, but, there's some things we just can't quantify.
Well, and being short-staffed is tough. I like creating some harmony in your department too, and allowing those guys that are working and never taking off, they have families and it's summertime and they want to enjoy their weekends or whatever, also,
Yep.
and they deserve to be able to do that, so. I would say let's move this to the next board meeting.
For clarification, do you want a full position analysis? Are you good with just what we've discussed?
I am good with the full-time sub. Yes, and I think that's a great idea to help you, and we can make it work for now, and
Katie or Jake, has either of you looked at the costs, that might be a question your colleagues have Monday night.
You know, again, with having some flexibility of if that candidate is a really good housekeeping candidate, I'd bring them on as a housekeeping wage. If that candidate's a really good custodial candidate, I would bring that candidate on as a custodian.
Right.
So,
For the sub, you mean,
for the sub, yeah.
wherever, okay.
So
Is
you
there-
So it
start
could-
between 16 and 19
Yeah.
an
Yeah,
hour.
Okay.
yep, and that would, before benefits, that would be either 18 or 22,000
Okay.
a year.
Right.
And I mean, in subbing and overtime alone last year, and these numbers aren't exact.
That's
Again,
okay.
there's some, but it is roughly 26,000. So, I mean, we've paid more in subbing and overtime
Right.
last year than this position would do. Now, is it gonna solve every time that I'm never gonna have overtime? No. There's still snow days, there's still things that come up.
So how did you calculate that annual wage?
Just the 1602 is the base for
Right.
housekeeper.
Mhm.
I'm sorry,
That's right. Well, that's what you said.
2,080 hours,
I'm sorry. That's, I gave you the wrong number.
33.
Yeah, it's 33.
Thank you,
before-
sorry.
Before any of the benefits.
Right,
or
right.
that. Yeah, so
Sorry.
that's just the base.
So would they be working 40 hours
It-
or every week,
Yes.
even though they're sub? Okay,
Yes,
okay.
and that's where I would target them with, you know, one big place that really, I see some overtime going and could use some more help is the elementaries. I mean, those guys trying to do proper cleaning during the day
Yeah.
with an occupied building, they don't, so typically they end up doing a little bit more before or after. So,
Right.
you know, one night a week, they may go there for an 8-hour shift and just really, really support that.
Okay.
I would offer the thought of having a position analysis provided for the board if this is a yearly
Review.
position to be reviewed. I was asked to be here tonight, so I'm just sharing my feedback. But I'll let the committee members decide that, but I do think it provides consistency throughout the district, and I just think it's kind of a safeguard too. So that's my feedback, is I would like to see a position analysis.
With the full costs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and general duties and.
Yeah, that's fine, I wanted to have this conversation so I understood if we were all on the same page, you know, explain my way of thinking, and, yeah, I can certainly fill in an analysis, that's not a problem.
So then this also would have to go to finance, or would this be able to go right straight to the board?
It could
Go
go
to the
directly to the
board.
board.
Okay.
That's why, in July, this committee sits on the same night as mine and Jake's, and they're so interwoven, at least with finance, that I plan on being at all, because to jump things from committee to committee to committee just eats more time.
Right.
So I'm good with it going right to the board.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
So full board with the analysis on
Monday,
Next Monday.
July or June.
26.
Thanks.
Are you good? Yep. You're welcome.
Yep.
Thank you. So item C is an additional position for the high school office, clerical assistant.
Good evening. So, the title is, additional position, but it's not additional FTE. What happened with our scheduled change is that we currently have an instructional assistant that supervises all study halls. And that individual, that position, is no longer needed because we're expanding our Pride time, and we will not have a study hall in every hour of the day like we do currently. So that FTE, we want to do some creative things here with moving an administrative assistant, which is a category 3, Katie?
Correct.
Keeping her at a category 3, which has to do with her pay scale, moving her up for her home base to be up here in the media tech, and handling, since that position handles all the guest teachers that come in, all the substitute teachers, and assigning them to where locations are. Much like Jake, our substitute teacher pool is very low. We do have some subs that are very consistent, including our high school did it a little differently. Instead of a full-time sub, we have 2 part-time subs for some flexibility reasons. But overall, our substitute pool is very low. So after whatever guest teachers or substitutes are assigned for that day, if there are 2 teachers that are not covered for that day, their classes would report here to the media tech and engage in their learning through Canvas. Or if, a teacher had to leave for the last 2 hours, their last 2 hours classes could report here instead of try to find in-house coverage or try to get somebody in to cover those 2 hours. So what we're doing with that administrative assistant, in summary, is moving her up here, continuing her administrative assistant duties with the exception of handling traffic in the office. So the traffic meaning passes, calls, notes, it's in that job description there, all of those different details. So we're removing this, we're trading some duties here. So the administrative assistant's moving up here, keeping her same duties except for the in-the-office work. So therefore that FTE, that supervised study halls, we want to pick up those clerical duties in the office. It's not an administrative assistant, it's an office clerical assistant, which depicts the category 5 job description. But right now in category 5, all we have is instructional assistant, which that language would not fit the clerical assistant piece. So we want to add that office clerical assistant to that classification 5.
So help me to understand this. Why, if you're moving, and let me understand this. So the study hall monitor who was last year
Yes.
would move to the new clerical assistant, which essentially already exists because that person is going to move up here.
So, go ahead, Clay.
All the duties still exist.
Right, so then my question was, why would we pay her a lower pay grade, being a 5 instead of a 3?
Because she would not be responsible for the same level of duties that administrative assistants are responsible for.
And the admin assistant that's going to come up here?
Correct.
Right? And then that person that's in this room, she would still handle sub-teachers, traffic-wise?
Yep.
And then anything uncovered subs, or uncovered classes per se, could come in here
Yep.
if they need to.
And that administrative assistant, that's her regular job duties anyway, was key in designing this position because she said, just for efficiency, like, I'm running all over in the morning trying to get coverage for everything throughout the day, where
So now she has
I'm
like a
going to be
sub-hub.
I'm going to be involved in everything, and I know what's going to happen if we don't get that covered. They're just coming to me. And she's excited about that shift. If you look on all the classroom doors, we've got whiteboards on there to direct students if for some reason something happens that hour, report to Media Tech.
So if there's a day where you need both part-time subs,
Yep.
and then there's 2 or 3 other classes that need to be covered because those teachers are out, say the, colds and flus and stuff like that are going around, and we have a bunch of teachers out, all of those students are going to come here and do Canvas learning? And she's going to be
Yes.
essentially being like a study hall for that particular class.
Well, we want to get her access to Canvas so
Okay.
she can see Mr. Lewandowski's Canvas page, so she can help the students say, no, it's not just I don't think Mr. Lewandowski didn't have on here just to talk to your friends or look at
Yeah.
your phone. He's got on here that these are the assignments that you need to do, this is the learning you need to engage in.
Does
And-
she need a sub-license?
Only to instruct.
Right,
So you
okay.
can supervise students working independently or in groups or whatever, but you cannot legally instruct.
So how often do you anticipate that happening where she's gonna have a class in here?
What would you say, Janet?
All the time.
Quite frequently.
Well-
Well, am I gonna say every day? No, but I'm gonna say quite frequently. There are many, many days that our teachers covered, and Katie can attest. So we won't, in a way, this is gonna save us because we won't be paying our teachers. We now pay our teachers, what is it, $20 an hour?
20 or an hour. of
Whenever they
sick
go to
leave.
cover a class.
Mhm.
So we'll be saving the district money that way, where we won't be paying a teacher, which our teachers will already be down to only one prep. They won't have that second prep. A lot of them went and subbed that second prep. So they won't be having that this year, so we'll be saving the district money that way, where we will not be having those teachers. Yes, some
Now,
teachers
that-
may still cover hours, yes, because there are some days when, you have to realize, we have 77 teachers in this building in a day. So there are days when we have 18, 19 teachers out, when it's colder and flu season, and so we do have a high sub need in the high school.
So, okay, so talking about the clerical tasks for the position you're requesting. The person that would be coming in here normally does those clerical,
All of us, these are jobs that all of us do.
okay.
So we're still gonna have the same amount of traffic flow down there. We're still gonna have the same amount of phone calls. We are a huge hub for the community, the high school is. We have a lot of community members that come in. We're still gonna have all of that same amount of work. It's just that there's gonna be one less of us to do it. So that's why this suggestion to have the clerical.
Okay. I mean, I like the
Assistant to
idea
help us.
of the position coming up here. I think that's really good. I'm
Well, and I like the
struggling with
idea of
clerical.
saving the position that might have been lost, too, you know.
And the efficiency piece was just really key in the design, or in the redesign of the administrative assistant's position moving up here. Because like I said, she's cutting out a lot of legwork in terms of trying to get teacher X or teacher Y to cover teacher B, and running around trying to get that happen, trying to get that covered. And if she didn't get it covered, then she was going to instructional assistants, going to administration, trying to get somebody in there.
So-
And it was like a lot of stress and panic saying, oh my gosh, I don't have anybody for this position right now.
Katie Ann, what will be the impact budget-wise?
There
There's
is
none-
no additional
there's no
budget.
additional
It's a
person.
direct swap.
Oh, I thought
So-
for the new position, the person that was in study hall coming to the clerical position.
It's
They-
same
Oh,
category.
it's
They
the
were
same.
in study hall
And that's
before.
one thing
Oh.
that I told Clint, that because the position is, like, has less responsibilities, because it's not an admin assist, it's just clerical, so you're doing the phones, you're doing the traffic, that kind, it would stay in that same category. So no additional budget implications.
So we would still have
Oh,
a
okay.
classification 5
Yep.
employee, we would still have a classification 3 employee. They would just be in different locations,
Different duties. Okay.
and since it's not a existing position, this is how it's listed as the additional.
Even
Okay.
though it's a
It's not
flop of
really
FTE,
additional,
it's not
right.
additional,
It's
it's
an
just a
FTE neutral.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't have
But we're
this
not-
physical position that we can fill because it's not an approved position or on the pay scale. So that's what we're asking for, is that it becomes an approved position and gets put in the category 5. And then what, you know, once that's done, then we're able to open it up for internal candidates or external help.
So, okay, then I have a question. So is that already, I was thinking that the person that was in the study hall position now was just making the move.
That's where the internal candidate, where we'd open it up internally, and anybody internally can apply.
Okay,
They would be offered to apply for it, but we
Okay.
don't want to discount that maybe that internal candidate would like an IA position somewhere else.
okay,
Or maybe they want a complete change.
Right.
But we don't want to just say this is your only option, or nor
Okay.
can we really. We do have to open it up for internal, but we would have the opportunity then to offer.
I get it. I get it.
That person that is the instructional assistant up here supervising study halls did receive a letter of intent. I don't.
Yeah,
can't remember.
assurance.
Assurance, there you go.
That we could provide something equal to, or if she would like to go
Yeah.
above in that area, so.
Okay. I'm okay with moving the positions around. I don't know if I would be okay with hiring a new person to come in, you know, like, then you're truly adding a position.
Yeah, it would not be adding.
Okay.
We have open positions here already that are not filled, so we have the autonomy to
Okay.
Help them.
replace it with an
Right.
IA already, but give the option or the opportunity to that position to move where she feels is best.
Okay.
So what we'd be asking for the committee to do is move that forward to the board for.
Right.
The change or the addition in
Yeah, I don't.
category,
It would be an addition.
job description, or?
It would just be an addition under category 5 and
Yeah.
approval of the job description. So, and right on the job description, we can put category 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that the rest of the board also knows the whole restructure process.
And that it's a 0 FTE
Right,
change.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, so,
And that's why I started off with, this is not an
yeah, that's what
additional
you told me,
FTE.
yeah. I was confused, but, okay.
Me too. I was confused at first. You did well
Get it.
to
Yeah.
work through that.
Okay,
Yeah, it was.
Any-
so are we good with that as a committee? Okay,
Thank you.
yeah. So we can move on to letter D, guest speaker for staff and students.
So Bobby expressed interest in Joe, I want to say Sanfilippo, coming to our district. He's a very dynamic former superintendent. I say former because I think he, as of July 1st, is giving up his superintendent position to be a motivational speaker full-time. Have any of the rest of you heard him? So he's very dynamic, but he's also very booked. And I did get some pricing because, you know, we had our first community or collaborative PD with this past school year, Tomahawk, Elko, and Mosinee. And so I wondered if Al Betry from CISA 9 and his group had looked at Joe as a possible speaker. And they had, but not for long because so many people had heard him already. But he is $9,500 for a keynote. So that would be about 60 minutes.
So is this a guest speaker for staff or students?
Well,
It sounds like
if it's
staff.
an hour, if it's 10,000 an hour, right, for that keynote, it would be staff. To work with students would be additional. It says here, a half day, which would be about 3 hours, would be 12,500. So that's as far as I went, Bobby, was just to get that cost.
Did the other, so is the PD again planned with those neighboring?
Yes,
and
we are
Tomahawk,
going to
Elko?
Tomahawk this time.
Tomahawk, Elko, who?
I don't think Elko's joining
Oh.
us. Tomahawk and Mosinee initially said no, but now they're back in.
Okay,
So I think in Tomahawk, we'll be meeting Mosinee there in October, so 3 districts again. The speaker is,
Mosini and Tomahawk were here last time.
from Cardinal Stritch, I want to say Thibodeau. I don't know if that's right, though. I've only heard him once, and same kind of that we had this past year, just very motivational. A great way to kind of kick off your day, but then you have learning opportunities. You can sign up for different sections the rest of the day for whatever your interests are. If you are wanting to hear Joe, he will be presenting at the Rural Schools Conference. Now, it was beautiful because the National Rural Schools Conference was in Green Bay this past year. So I'm not sure where this one is at, but he is the keynote there.
Is that at the Dells?
I don't know. So I know that you or, others would have an opportunity to hear him, but we don't have that kind of money budgeted.
I did know that he was very booked and expensive, but, and I knew that this wouldn't be this fall, for
Right.
sure.
Right.
And so Rural Education Conference, you said,
Mhm.
so that's National Rural Education?
This would be just Wisconsin's, I believe.
That's in the Dells.
Oh, you have, it is. Do you have the date?
Do you do? October 23rd and 24th.
Does it say, Mary Kay, that he is the keynote? I want to see if I can find.
So I guess one thing comes to mind is the staff have motivational speakers at the PE days.
That's my next question.
And so I would think that we would want to bring in somebody for the students because the staff is already covered.
Different schools, okay. Different schools will invite different folks in, so like elementary, always on a smaller scale, and I know that they have traveled middle school through Betsy Neufeld, I can't think of that name either, a motivational speaker, really engaging. Anyway, but it has been a long time. Now I'm trying to think if in my past 5 years, I don't think so, where we've had someone address the entire student body. Well, you really couldn't anyway. It would have to be broken up by
Right.
building or whatever.
Right.
But yeah.
I'd say it would be more impactful at the upper grades.
Mhm.
I do think that.
Joe definitely would
Mhm.
be upper, I agree.
Okay.
Well, I understand that that is not something that's been in the budget, but I also feel like it's super important to change or to try to come up with some ideas on changing the culture of what we have going on here in schools, because I think behaviors have a lot to do with that. So that was my effort in suggesting or bringing forward the conversation, is that I just feel that we need to do something more and something more impactful, something different.
Are we allowed,
And that's my thought. I don't know, and I have not researched a ton of other speakers because quite honestly, I was absolutely floored by him
And
to
you can
tears.
Google him.
I was gonna
He's
say.
impactful.
Yeah.
Very funny, too.
Yes, and I could see him communicating well with all ages, from elementary all the way up to staff, all staff. But, so that was my thought on bringing this forward. I don't know how the rest of the board feels or the committee, but I think that that is worth investing.
as a school district, are we allowed to do like major fundraising events?
We have fundraising policies. It's typically one, now you're gonna.
Or like big
task my
sponsorship
memory.
events, stuff like that,
I mean, if that's what we agreed to, we certainly could. Otherwise, it's by club usually or sport. Schools once in a while, especially the elementaries, they did their fundraisers consistently. I know books, the minutes you read, that really generated a lot for the kids where they had take-home books. That was amazing, but
Yeah.
we haven't done any fundraising as an entire district since I've been here.
Okay, that might be an idea.
Right.
Yeah, kind of, not that we would host this somewhere else, obviously, but do like a wine and cheese type
Oh, boy.
fundraising event. Something along those lines.
Well, I think maybe we can just leave it open for discussion again, or still, or bring it back, or when somebody has some information. Quite frankly, I'm gonna look into this Rural Schools Conference and see what else is involved in that conference, if that's okay with. I believe there's a board one actually on July, that leadership summit.
14th.
Yeah, and I didn't look at the agenda because that's such a hard date. I think that's a Friday and Saturday.
I think it is later.
Weird
For the summer, that is,
dates, yeah. And I feel like I remember it being that Friday, Saturday
think
before,
it
I don't
is,
know.
yeah.
But,
Green Bay.
so it does say that the rural conference is intended for administrators, teachers, board members, CESA employees, education professionals,
and
college
we're
and
a
grad
member
students.
of the Rural Schools Alliance, so you would get discounted.
So is there a rate, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'll be okay with looking into that, I guess, for the time being, and then maybe some further conversation on keynote speakers at some point. Nobody seems to have any feeling on that.
I like the idea,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about like logistical and feedback, like is there a way to do an internal survey with students with A, B, C, D options, and maybe not necessarily all motivational speakers, but like what would motivate you to bring,
Good idea.
you know, A, B, C, D, E, and before spending 10 grand to bring somebody in, but the engagement isn't what we hope for, or, and like, time of year, at the start of the year, would it be better to do it, when there's that like
I wonder if we could use like a,
struggle in like January after the holiday, you know, like kind of just being intentional that way too, of what admin and staff feel would be helpful along with students, because I really like your idea and I would really want it to be like well thought out, so then I'm just kind of, that's my feedback, is expanding my thoughts on how could we get some feedback with some options or ideas that's financially responsible.
Right,
Because
and-
if it's beneficial and positive, then the second thing is we'd want to be able to sustain that, and would it be yearly or,
Right.
you know, every couple of years, whatever.
Right,
but-
and then Pride Week sort of comes to mind too, for students. We do the same thing every single year for Pride Week, and I don't know how effective that is anymore. I mean, I know that when I was here, it was like, it's pajama day, it's red day, you know.
And that typically is student-led, you know, so
Yeah.
they kind of choose what they want to promote. But I know what you mean, there are only so many options, but.
But it may be a good
student-led,
time.
that could be something too, because it's a great idea to piggyback off that, then student-led with options in that group decides, or something, where then that is incorporated in that same week, and then it really is student-led, student-focused, for student benefit.
They do, you know, 10,000 obviously is a lot of money, but buildings have their own budgets too. So it is very possible that, you know, knowing, like Heather at the middle school, to find someone that fits all 4 through 7, she could absolutely budget for that too. You know, it wouldn't have to come from fundraising, or, because it would be more affordable and relevant to that age learner. High school would be the, you know, they obviously have the most kids, so probably the most expensive, and then you'd really, like you're saying, Jill, want someone that would be effective and impactful.
I wonder if we could use like an app that does surveys and send it to the families, the kids. Because that would be probably a more likely response. Or they could just, even scan a QR code and it takes them to a survey.
Maybe it could tie in during Pride Time and 7 Mindsets too, and generate discussion.
Mhm.
She gave them a choice of like 4 different speakers, who they would want to hear from the most.
Matt Barak did ask, but I think it's 2 years ago already, can we schedule a speaker? And absolutely, but that was the last I heard.
So we just need some more research done, obviously. I mean, that's what I think.
Mhm.
We have a lot of ideas, and I want to spend some time putting that all kind of into a better plan, per se.
Okay.
Makes sense?
So would you see then, to build momentum from this point, kind of formulating thoughts from this discussion, and then would it be like brought back to committee? Would it be sent out to building admin of here's some thoughts, process, provide feedback? Like, how do we?
Yeah, and I think it should come back to committee with more information, more options, some more ideas as far as the timeline, who's addressed and when and where. You know what I mean? I just think we need a lot more information.
Oh, yeah.
My thought on initiating the conversation was just to get feedback if there was any interest, because I feel like it's super important and I feel that it's worth the investment. I don't know if it's worth a $10,000 investment, but I do think that we need some.
And he's on the high end.
Some change. Yeah, I'm here,
And he
sure.
is exceptional.
Right.
But I really believe there are other exceptional speakers who would
For
be
sure.
less.
But I do think our staff and students are worth it, and I think we need to
So,
make that investment in do the extra thing I remember like years ago you used to have assemblies every once in a while where you brought the whole student body into the gymnasium and there was a speaker or a whatever there.
so I had a good friend of mine that was an awesome motivation speaker, and I was trying to get him here. His parents, he lived in Florida, and his parents live in Minneapolis. And when I was talking to him, talked about getting together with a bunch of different schools throughout our area and creating like a tour for him to go to all the different schools. So maybe we could not partner in them so that the students come here, but partnering to create a tour and making it more worthwhile for that person to come to this area.
And then would all the schools chip in
Yes.
to cover that?
That was.
And get price
Yeah.
breaks, that's what we did in
Yeah.
Wausau all the time. Wausau, DC Everest,
Yeah.
Merrill, they would all, so then you'd get a nationally recognized speaker come to the area,
Yep.
and then you get a price break, but then they're booked for a few days, so it is worth.
Right. It is worth coming to Central Wisconsin for them.
So that is, that's a whole another thing that we could look into, and maybe your friend, but maybe whomever, like you're saying.
Yeah, unfortunately, he passed away, so that's.
Oh.
No, but that's,
To work sort of like your PD day did, where you had 3 schools involved in one joint effort, and then split the cost hopefully, but. So I would say to bring it back to committee with more conversation. I think it's worth more conversation with more information on it, and I will make the effort to do that legwork, and I may call you on that
Sure.
too. Are you guys good with that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so, item E is 5517, student anti-harassment revision.
So this one, you directed us to pull out of the update, which we did, and then I reached out to our Neola rep at your request. We were specifically concerned about, Angie, I remember you bringing it to our attention. The board is responsible, that's the first line. Oops, sorry, wrong policy. Here we go, on 5517, right under the first cross-out. The board will investigate all allegations of harassment. And the reason for that is I would be your designee, as it points out in the bylaws, kind of like we suspected when we discussed it. So then you would direct me to, make sure we have procedures and other, like following policy in place so that we do have protocol to follow up and investigate all harassment, et cetera. So Neola doesn't want you to be thrown by that language because the board just means that you oversee the policy and then you would be directing me and others to carry it out.
And I realize that this would make it really wordy, but like, it would, to me, policies should be very clear. Yes.
His answer to that, Angie, was it states that in the bylaws.
Yeah, but then you have to go to another policy to find, it's just like this big circle zigzag all over the place, looking at this policy that goes to this policy, that goes to this policy, when you could have just cleared it up and
That I,
adding a few words.
that I understand. The bylaws he shared,
Think, why make it complicated?
Yeah.
so you have executive power and the legal authority over issues. So then the district administrator hired by the board implements the policies. So then he just attached the 3 bylaws here that addresses the authority and powers of the board in relation to the expectation for the district administrator to enforce policies. So, in short, his answer was, you would not yourselves be doing the investigation, certainly, but that would be your expectation of me and others, that we have everything covered. So that was one question we had. The other was about the 2 compliance officers being female, and there's a drafting note that says that the suggestion would be to have both male and female. Well, with Heidi moving on, then we have Katie Ann, and I was thinking, I actually tried contacting him today. If you feel strongly about a male, I could connect with Tom Schofield, who's very well versed in Title IX through his job. But it's really up to you who you want that second officer to be. As of right now, everyone else at with that kind of investigative training is female.
What are the qualifications? Like, they just have to be trained, or like?
Right,
what?
it's an online, like Tom would have to be trained as an AD in Title IX already. That's why he's my suggestion, but otherwise, I remember Heidi going through, well, she was always trained because of special ed, laws and whatnot. But it's an online training, kind of like you would take our Safe Schools training. It's all in there. Oh, sorry.
There's a lot in there.
So it's like an online portal, and you go through the slides and you agree that you understand. I'm sure this one would be more sophisticated. But basically, it's just making sure that you investigate thoroughly, you follow policy, report to the district administrator on what you're finding. The superintendent or district administrator is listed always as as one of the final steps before any recommendation would come to the board for.
So going back to the board investigating, I guess, to make it more clear for somebody from the outside looking in, I would like to add something about the board, or through the district administrator physician, the board will invest, something like that.
Where is
Just-
this language? Right in the beginning.
Do you have that where it's at? I've been trying to find it, but,
Are you asking me, sorry?
yes.
The bylaws?
No,
The policy itself, where
Where
it
it
says
is.
the board will investigate.
yeah,
So
Oh, right
if
here.
you look in draft, right, under
Yep.
Yeah.
June,
Yep.
right under the harassment may occur.
Okay.
The board will investigate all allegations of harassment, and in those cases, blah, blah.
Yeah, so couldn't we just say the board will investigate all allegations of harassment and then maybe put something like comma and add some language about how that takes place? I mean,
what if?
for the
we-
sake of clarity,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
What if you had the board comma through its designees?
Right,
yes, yes.
yeah.
And
think
what
Neola
Tim
would be-
Vanek from Neola is saying is that's implied. But if you would feel better having it explicitly stated.
It is.
Yeah.
It is
that
implied, but I
recommendation.
think it's not a big deal to add that.
And so just in that spot then, because it's early enough in the policy?
Here's
Well-
a question. I'm guessing there are other policies that would be similar to this, where we'd have or designee. So my concern would
I
be, we're seeking clarity, but then we are lacking consistency, because this policy would say the board or its
Or its
designee, but the other policies
Would just
would say the board.
Right, I believe those should be changed too, because that implies that we're,
Doing the legwork?
yeah, we actively, and we are not doing that because if it comes to the level of expulsion or something like that, we need to be at, the high level that we are, we don't have any involvement.
That's why there's bylaws though, to define the roles. So I am entirely hearing you, and if I'm thinking out like cost and time in first reading, second reading, board approval, it's in there through the bylaws. And that would be something to consider as the committee. Is it redundant work?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't know. I don't like how any of our policies are written, honestly, because they're all so vague in there. I think, and it's done intentionally. So we have to have 3 different sets of everything. Job security for Neola.
That is concerning, like you say, about how many places that may,
Oh, it's all over, yeah.
I feel like it's a lot,
It
but
is.
we only notice when we're reviewing one intentionally, we don't.
That's
The
like changing-
consistency is a
sorry.
very good point.
Right now, we're in the process of changing all the Board of Education to just board.
Mhm.
And it's been years that it's taking to get everything all uniform. Because you don't always look at all the policies every year, just when the mandates come out.
So maybe, do you want to review the bylaws to see if you feel comfortable with what the bylaw states? To determine if you want to move forward with that recommendation of adding or designee.
Yeah, I could take a look at the bylaws.
okay.
So should we put this back on for next month?
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking, you probably don't want to put it off another month. Is it a different discussion, pivoting?
Right.
Is this okay to move forward, and maybe next month's policy agenda item review is a discussion on adding or designee
Across the
within
board.
the policies, so that way what's been done with this current policy can continue to move forward.
Okay,
And
Yeah.
That makes sense.
then
yeah, that makes
it's
sense.
It's a separate
Discussion,
issue,
yeah.
Did you want to add Tom Schofield as the other compliance officer? That's something that we could do before.
So the discussion on the board or designate, that'll be a separate item. And then I would support adding Tom Schofield. And, oh, here's my question. Compensation?
Mm-mm.
Okay, you can assign that.
I would want him to be.
Well, right,
Yeah, so if he would have any conflict, I would come back to you. but-
okay.
So I want to make sure I understand what our next steps are.
So we'll move forward as written and then discuss the wording of the board at the next policy meeting?
Well, I think, like Joe was saying, the discussion would be kind of across the table on the way that our policies are written that say the board will investigate or the board will take immediate prompt steps. So should it always say the board or its designee? Should it say that in all places? Because that's what you were talking about with consistency, correct?
And in
And that's-
order to make that decision, we'd review bylaws.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Mary Kay? Trying to confuse you more and more. And then as far as Tom Schofield goes, are you okay with adding him to that language? I feel like there should be a male and female,
Yeah.
definitely.
I agree.
Okay.
So then we'll do that unless, you know,
Right.
he's not feeling it, and then I
Right.
would come back at that same
Yeah.
meeting.
Now,
Okay.
is he only for the high school or is he
No, it
district-wide?
would be district-wide.
Okay.
Which makes sense because there are coaches, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes we have intramural at middle school and
Yeah,
other
he's
places,
very,
so.
seems very appropriate choice for
And
that.
running camps for
Yeah.
Okay.
the young
He seems
ones.
like a very appropriate choice, actually.
Okay.
And has some of that training, like you
Yeah.
said, yeah. Okay. Okay, item F is new policy 8802, patriotic activities and observances. And just to be absolutely clear, for the committee, we wanted to look at 8800 and then 8802, just so we have this on record that we are clear with what that means. And if I understood it right, it was 8800 being religious observances and 8802 patriotic.
8800 was both of them combined.
Right.
It was religious and patriotic.
Okay?
So then they created 8802 to break the two apart. So we have a
Right.
religious policy and then the patriotic policy.
Right. And the flag language is in 8802, as far as I understood. I gotta look. And then we also had some pretty lengthy discussion about flag display from, maybe you can touch on that, Julie, or,
So the American flag, because I'm not sure which discussion I should reference.
I know, so we mentioned that, about maybe going to only having the US flag anywhere. So that's all that would be allowed. So,
right, and its affiliates, like military forces, POW. And we had a lengthy email from the attorney regarding that. I'm not sure if that was the whole board or just the committee.
I think it was just the committee.
Okay.
Yeah, it was my understanding flags in the discussion,
I'll find
for-
it.
to identify within this discussion, the United States flag, the Wisconsin state flag, or the POW flag would be
And
anytime
military.
flag is referenced. Those were the three per Danny. That was being,
Oh, do you have that? That's what I'm just looking for.
I can.
so that's
And-
the point about the military flags.
And there has been just so we're clear, there was, the Supreme Court ruled on this type of case, if the school had violated the First Amendment rights of students or teachers by insisting upon removal of certain things, you know, if they can't, and only being able to display the one type. And it was found that it was not a violation of students' rights, as the school had the ability to refuse to lend its name and resources to dissemination of student expression.
So there was some other language in there that said you could not display a flag on student property,
on
but you.
school property.
Right.
Okay.
Right, but didn't it also say, like, if it was on your car, that's your own personal property?
So I want to make sure
Okay.
are we on 8802, the one that's in the June update?
Yes, so we're
Okay.
talking about adding language to that
Okay,
surrounding the fact that, so only the United States flag and, like the military and the Wisconsin flag would be, yeah, would be allowed to.
So there was a memo that came, you would have gotten this from Dave Rundy?
Davis, yep, I did.
Davis.
Okay.
And we
Dave.
talked about that in terms of both students and staff he addressed in
Right.
there. And students, they do have freedom of speech rights. Staff, the board can, I'm paraphrasing, so tell me
Yep.
if that's what you understand. The board can determine what staff can display or not display, but his caution is just make sure that you're very consistent. I know we talked about a pride sticker that was visible to the public and whether or not that was allowable. It doesn't meet the threshold of a captive audience. But if that's something, like a student could display that without any issue, but an employee, then we would just have to make sure that that is covered consistently across the district. Which, I think he used the word, like systematically, it sounds like we'd have to be really careful.
Yeah, so I think part of it, the memo, the placement of other flags, not US, say Wisconsin or prisoner of war flags, would be, okay, sorry, I was finding the spot, it doesn't violate, what did we just said it, you guys, I'm so sorry, and I'm gonna lose my spot in here. It's not a captive audience, however, the location in which it might be presented is the other point that was brought up in the memo. Although it's not a captive audience, the district may still regulate the placement of a sticker in which to ensure the speech is not erroneously attributed to the district. So, yeah, it sounds like the placement of flags outside of the US, say Wisconsin POW flag, it can't be in a place of instruction.
Right.
And also then we would want to have the discussion on where it's located and who would perceive it, right? Like who the visitors that may come in to see it, right? Is that how you took the memo? Because that's how I took it.
So you want to define captive audience?
No.
No, because that doesn't apply, he said.
Essentially, is it viewable to the public where it could present as though the district is endorsing another type of flag outside of the United States flag, the state of Wisconsin flag or prisoner of war flag? That's how I took it.
Yes, okay.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. And my feeling is that, no, we do not want to endorse that. So I do feel that that should be added to the language of 8802, or else an additional new policy. I'm not sure. That's kind of a legal question as well, as where do you address that?
8802 it covers the flag.
And then I wonder about definitions of flags too, because he uses the term sticker in that legal memo.
Right, I mean, that's any representation of a flag, because, I mean, like you said, it could be a sticker, it could be a flag, it could be a,
Drawing, it
Drawing,
could, right,
yeah.
anything.
so when I Googled, or when I searched for flag in our policies, it comes up with the 8800 policy and then educational outcome goals and expectations. I don't
That's
like-
because you're in policies and not in drafts, correct?
Right, I know, I'm looking to see where we currently have it,
Oh,
because you're like, I don't know if this is the appropriate place to,
okay.
I thought we had a flag policy.
The memo refers to the sticker and the flag essentially as one. So the way in which I would interpret that is anything used to represent that of a flag, whether it's a physical flag such as the United States flag there, or a sticker representing a flag. In terms of defining, I don't know if that's necessarily defining, but the representation.
The other thing is this policy references in accordance with the U.S. flag code requirements. So I don't know if we can add our specific language to this policy because it already references the U.S. flag code, which is one in its own.
That's what
You
I'm
know,
thinking.
the U.S. flag code
According
is
to that
its own
statute.
deal. And you
Where
won't
is
touch
that?
that.
So you would have to look up the US flag code.
Well, you can't change or add or modify something that references the U.S. flag code, I don't think.
Well, that's for the
Right, you know
US
what I mean?
flag, though. That's not for the
That's what
district.
this is representing.
But this policy is referencing specifically because of the U.S. flag code requirements. So I'm thinking that
We would
if we
need-
want this language added, it either needs to be added somewhere else, like maybe 8800, or, well, that doesn't though.
That's right, it's separated.
Um,
I mean, is it an ED that you want to add?
That's an idea too.
I'm sorry. I think it's stated there.
Yeah. Because we couldn't amend something that's not ours to amend, essentially.
Right.
88
Right.
to. So the first question would be, if the policy committee wants to move forward on having language specific to what's allowable for flags or that of
Right.
a representation of flags. And then the second would be, if yes, then is it a separate policy? If no, then the discussion will probably stop, right? If I'm clarifying or summarizing where we're at right now.
That's how I see it. So
Okay.
I feel like we need, I'm
Separate
sorry, but I
policy.
think it needs to come back.
That 8802 needs to come
Yeah,
back, or just a different discussion?
Or separate.
You know,
It's
yeah.
one policy.
We need to draft up a draft.
Agree with you that 8802, even its title, patriotic activities and observances in accordance with U.S. flag code requirements. I feel like that policy is good to go, and what you are looking at would live elsewhere. The question is.
That's right.
Yeah, so we would put together a draft.
So 8802 could
Policy.
come back and we'll bring a new 8803? I don't know. You know,
Wait, sorry.
okay.
8802, this is the first reading of that.
No, this is the review.
Okay.
First reading will be at the full board.
Yes, okay. So when you say it can come back, what are you meaning by that?
Well, that's before we just said that that language should probably be in something else completely. Now that we kind of clarified that, and I think we agree on that, then 8802 would be okay to go to the board, right?
That's what, yeah.
And then we want some additional language that's probably going to have to live in a new policy or somewhere else. I don't know exactly where.
So do we need to draft that policy then?
I think
And
that's
then review it here at this committee?
yeah, is that a question for Neola? Julie?
We
Or-
could add, well, no, because it would be,
Above and beyond what they
Yeah,
are recommending.
because they don't have anything like that in their policies. but it might be Dean has drafted policies certainly before.
And
So Dean has drafted some outside policies for us, other than what Neola kind of cans?
Or revised
Okay,
at the board's request, yeah.
okay, then I would seek his advice and have our board president get in the loop too, obviously, and try to come up with a new draft for our additional language that we want.
And then that would be moved to next month's
It would come back to this committee meeting.
Next month, okay.
Not come back, I mean, it would be like a new item, actually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
yes, so I will piggyback off that. Danny asked me to come tonight, and I talked through new business letters, E and F, quite thoroughly with him to make sure I was understanding correctly. And it was, his feedback, he was certainly in support of ensuring there is language specific to, essentially now it sounds like a new policy. So when you said loop them in, that's what
Okay,
he
good.
was seeking as well. And initially was, could there be language to address that added to 8800? The answer is no, because that's religious, right? So that's been separated.
Right.
So it does tie with his
Okay, yeah.
feedback and directive of,
So now we're just seeking on how to draft a new policy, basically. Okay,
since it was ruled out that it wouldn't
So
be added somewhere.
we're all on the same page with
Yep.
that.
So is there anything to do prior to the next meeting?
For you, I don't think so. I think that we can seek, I'll talk to Danny about it, about talking to Dean.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll take care of that one. Do you have other questions, you girls, Catherine or Angie?
I'm just, okay, so I'm looking at the draft of 8800 and everything that they are wanting to take out. Just to make sure that it's now covering religious. So we would need to change the title of that one.
To what? Because it says,
We need to take patriotic ceremonies and observances.
it's crossed.
Where? Oh.
Technically.
Okay.
I did that too.
Oh, did you just look at the top?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Right here. Thank you.
So surrounding that, I do have one question.
We're on 8800.
Yes. So,
Good question.
so what happens if a staff member decides to do a prayer over the intercom system?
Mm.
Like, is there, do we shut them off? Like, I mean, what happens? Like, is there
Does it say? I mean,
Highly
recourse, like-
inappropriate was not,
but it was very long.
wasn't announced, no permission ahead of time, certainly. Kind of a last hurrah for that employee,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, in case, I don't know if you guys knew that or not, we had an employee that was no longer with us in the district, but decided to do a prayer over, they must have access to on their
Well,
rooms?
They do.
Everybody
Can page.
should know in case like for an Alice or
Yeah.
an
Emergency, you can
intruder,
page.
Right.
Okay.
You want to be able to say,
Okay. But anyways, this person kept going on, and it was quite lengthy and, and a little out there is what I was told.
Was this just recently?
Yes,
last day.
yeah. But like, I don't know if there's a way to, I don't know.
well, if they're no
They're
longer
done, yeah.
employed.
The only time, like Fellowship of Christian Athletes meets, and of course it's for that purpose, and advisors, so prayer is part of that, of
That
course.
surprises me, actually, but that's,
Well, it's an outside, right?
It's an outside group?
Yeah,
But with an advisor,
yeah. Mhm.
meaning staff?
He was a sub for us, Greg Parise, used to
Okay.
be a staff member.
Okay,
but-
okay. I'm just trying to make sure that we're being consistent
Right,
with everything.
I get that.
Not saying you disagree or agree with
Right.
things, I just want
Yeah, it's-
consistency.
Mhm.
Okay, that was my only question.
okay.
Glad
With
doesn't happen
that
often.
being said, are we okay to adjourn?
You're in
Yes.
charge.
Okay, we're gonna adjourn.